Very proud to be continuing the journey with this video sponsor, Squarespace. They just re-signed for the 7th year running, making them our longest running and most supportive partner. They help me do what I do, just like their website creation tools help millions of people start new careers, build new businesses, or just get things done. They're offering a special discount to viewers of this channel, so stick around to the end of the video to learn more. Gamers! Hello and welcome to 2026. I know you guys have been here for all of 2 weeks now, but we're just getting back on deck after an extended vacation. We like to take some proper time off and rest and recharge since not a lot goes on in the video games business between Christmas and the first 2 weeks of January. And honestly, that's been the case this year too. That's not to say that nothing's been happening, of course. I mean, there was that story about Rainbow Six Siege being overtaken by hackers for days at a time and then just going full Robin Hood, handing out free credits to everyone. By and large, the industry did take a break to recover from what was a surprisingly big and eventful 2025. We have been on vacation, but we haven't been totally idle during that time. For example, I am nearing the tail end of Silksong right now, 60 hours deep, and yep, Act 3 is a ball ache, all right. I've also spent the past 2 months playing around with the ROG Xbox Ally, and I'm finally ready to talk about it, so stay tuned for a video on that one real soon. Austin's been playing some Ashes of Creation, the ambitious but very, very unfinished MMO that launched into early access last year. Stu's currently playing around with Quarantine Zone in preparation for a website write-up, and the Friends Per Second podcast just recorded our first episode back for the year, and that'll be up over the weekend. So I guess what I'm saying is, we're back, baby, and 2026 already has plenty to talk about, so let's get to it, shall we? Here comes the first news block of 2026. All right, so how about we kick off the year with an update from one of the biggest news stories from last year involving Larian and their use of generative AI, a topic that I think will be pretty top of mind throughout most of 2026, sadly. Larian boss Sven Vincke found himself in some hot water last year when, in an interview with Bloomberg, he briefly mentioned that the studio had been experimenting with generative AI in their workflow. This, of course, caused quite a stir, specifically regarding its use in the concepting phase, with people suggesting it stifles creativity and discoverability for artists, something we covered at length in an op-ed over at thisweekinvideogames.com, where we spoke to a number of industry artists who all shared this sentiment. This obviously raised concerns for their next title, Divinity, which was announced at the Game Awards not long before these comments were made. People rather dramatically claimed that Divinity would be nothing more than AI slop and that Larian was officially washed. At the more practical end of the spectrum, though, people lamented the inclusion of this tech in Larian's creative process, which honestly is a very reasonable position, and I very much echo that. Thankfully, in a recent Reddit Ask Me Anything with the Larian team, Vincke himself assured that generative AI would not be used in any part of the concept art creation process. Quote, "So first off, there is not going to be any Gen AI art in Divinity. I know there's been lots of discussion about using AI tools as part of concept art exploration. We already said this doesn't mean the actual concept art is generated by AI, but we understand it's created confusion. So to ensure that there's no room for doubt, we've decided to refrain from using Gen AI tools during concept art development. That way there can be no discussion about the origin of the art," end quote. And this extends beyond concept art too, as lead writer on the game Adam Smith stepped in to say, quote, "The stance applies to writing as well. We don't have any text generation touching our dialogues, journal entries, or other writing in Divinity," end quote. So that's great news. However, Vincke did go on to suggest that Larian wouldn't be giving up on Gen AI entirely and would continue to experiment with the technology on the side in the hopes that it can be used ethically and effectively for future projects. Quote, "Having said that, we continuously try to improve the speed with which we can try things out. The more iterations we can do, the better in general the gameplay is. We think Gen AI can help with this, and so we're trying things out across departments. Our hope is that it can aid us to refine ideas faster, leading to a more focused development cycle, less waste, and ultimately a higher quality game. The important bit to note is that we will not generate creative assets that end up in the game without being 100% sure about the origins of the training data and the consent of those who created the data. If we use a Gen AI model to create in-game assets, then it'll be trained on data we own," end quote. That response didn't make everyone happy, as there's certainly a critical mass of people who don't want any AI involved in any part of the game making process. But as we discussed last year, between 60% and 90% of developers admit to using AI depending on the survey you're reading. Some of that is AI tools focused on more technical tasks, while some of it can mean the use of generative tools to create things like dialogue, voices, music, or art. Point is, developers are using these tools already, and they will continue to use them, and Larian's assertion is proof positive of that. Outside of the generative AI discussion, there were some other interesting tidbits to come out of this Ask Me Anything. One person asked if Baldur's Gate 3 would ever make its way to Switch 2, to which Vincke replied, quote, "We would have loved to, but it wasn't our decision to make," end quote, hinting at some sort of discord between Larian and rights holder Wizards of the Coast. As for the new Divinity game coming to Switch 2, however, technical director Bert Stevens says, quote, "We have just released Divinity Original Sin 2 for Switch 2. We love the platform and we will certainly consider Switch 2 for the next Divinity game," end quote. What's more, he also gestured towards the possibility of it coming to the Steam Deck. Quote, "Since Baldur's Gate 3 was one of the most played games on the platform, we will do our best to again release on the platform," end quote. Divinity on a Steam Deck would be nice, but you know what would be even better? Divinity on a Steam Deck 2. Hope you're working on that, Valve. Gabe, let me know in the comments below if you're watching. For a while now, it's felt like the era of physical games retailers is long behind us, but it's never been more Jova than with the recent news via Polygon that GameStop are reportedly closing hundreds of stores worldwide. Quote, "According to a public GameStop closing list, more than 470 stores have confirmed that they have closed or plan to close in January 2026. It's the highest for any month on record and equates to 20 to 25% of all GameStop stores across the United States," end quote. Additionally, the GameStop-owned EB Games is also proposing a complete shutdown in New Zealand, according to New Zealand-based news site RNZ. Shane Stockwell, managing director of EB Games New Zealand, says, quote, "This proposal is not final and no decision will be made until we've completed a full consultation process in good faith with affected team members. This proposal includes the closure of all remaining EB Games New Zealand stores and the New Zealand Distribution Centre. If the proposal were to proceed, it would mean that all roles within EB Games New Zealand would be disestablished," end quote. This would see the shutdown of 38 stores across New Zealand, and I do wonder if Australian stores would eventually follow suit. Honestly, I wouldn't be at all surprised given that walking into an EB Games over here feels like walking into a Funko Pop retailer that also happens to sell Roblox gift cards. I joke, but the truth is I worked at EB Games for a huge part of my youth. I think I started there when I was like 16 and I didn't quit until I was like 22 out of uni. The customers were a mix of awesome and weird. The midnight launches were a mix of exhausting and epic. The managers were a mix of really cool and chill and absolute fucking assholes. It was a complicated, beautiful beast of a thing, but true story, if you speak to anyone in Australia who works in game development or publishing or content creation, chances are they worked at EB Games at some point. It was both a nursery and a petri dish for gaming talent, and for customers, it was a place you'd go to talk about games and buy them physically, and even return them if you didn't like them, because yes, the 7-day return policy EB Games Australia offered was the single most consumer-friendly policy of all time, and also the most widely abused. God bless you customers, we loved you. I speak in the past tense because even if Australia does survive this round of closures, it all feels rather inevitable. How many record stores you got in your area these days? Places you can go to print off photos, a place where you can browse for DVDs. Physical media isn't going, man, it's already gone. And the niche that remains will likely be served by online retail and by enthusiast mom and pop stores. It's sad, but at least we'll always have the memories, because you better believe that when I am old and grey, I will be telling my grandkids about the Halo 2 midnight launch. That is our history and it must be remembered. Switching gears now, and I will preface the following by saying that the following is just a rumor, but a pretty well-sourced one, so we're going to talk about it and hope that it comes true, but don't be mad at me if it doesn't. What if I told you that there was a rumor there was a new expansion coming for a CD Projekt Red game? You'd be like, hang on, I thought Phantom Liberty was going to be the only Cyberpunk DLC. Well, it is, but this rumor has nothing to do with Cyberpunk. This rumor says that CD Projekt Red are planning another expansion to The Witcher 3, some 10 years after its initial release. Joseph Anderson on suicide watch right now. The rumor originated from one Boris, and I'm gonna butcher this, I apologize in advance, Niespielek. Oh man, I'm sure all the Poles in the audience are just laughing their asses off right now. Anyway, apparently he is a, quote, trusted source of Polish games industry information, a leaker of sorts, end quote. According to Eurogamer, who's done a full report on the matter, they go on to say, quote, Niespielek said in the summer last year that Fool's Theory, the studio remaking The Witcher 1 for CD Projekt Red, was making a new Witcher 3 expansion, and he reiterated this ahead of the Game Awards in December, where he expected the announcement to be made according to PC Games N, but such an announcement never came, end quote. It seems the rumor might have some truth to it though, as it's backed by a report made on the 16th of December from Polish Noble securities analyst Matusz Krzyzanowski, man, I'm so sorry. Anyway, he said, quote, we expect the next paid add-on DLC for The Witcher 3 to be released in May 2026, end quote. That's according to a Google translation of a Polish website report via Reddit. Eurogamer followed up with the leaker for further comment, and they said he claimed that, quote, several independent sources have told him this, end quote, while also pointing to a direct quote from CD Projekt Red's recent financial report, in which their CFO said, quote, given our current progress, there is a chance that new content hinted upon in recent calls and reports may see release in the coming year, having an impact on our results and increasing increasing the likelihood of achieving the earnings condition for the first stage of the incentive program, end quote. Eurogamer did reach out to CD Projekt Red as well, but as expected, they simply said they do not comment on rumors and speculation. Further fuel was added to the fire when IGN Poland said they'd heard about the expansion some time ago, but couldn't publish the report because it wasn't well sourced enough. So yeah, this is far from confirmed, but it's looking likely. And to be honest, the timing of it kind of makes sense. As Eurogamer points out, it closes the financial gap between CD Projekt Red's releases since the Cyberpunk team have moved on to the sequel, and The Witcher 4 still seems to be a ways out. It's also a great opportunity to bridge the narrative gap, to show the passing of the torch and warm people up to the idea of Ciri being the new main protagonist. Maybe this is just hopium, but hey, any excuse for another Witcher 3 playthrough is alright in my book. Turning to Ubisoft now, and beginning with a recent incident that's both alarming but also kind of funny. At one point over the break, Ubisoft had to take Rainbow Six Siege completely offline due to the absolute chaos caused by hackers. The initial hack happened over the Christmas weekend, with hackers handing out billions of in-game currency to players, giving out rare and premium skins, banning employees for, quote, toxic behavior, end quote, and also randomly banning and unbanning players. At one point, the hackers even managed to hijack the game's ban notices so that they spelled out the full lyrics to Michael Jackson's Billie Jean. This forced the game and marketplace to be brought offline as servers were rolled back, but just as Ubisoft were getting things under control, they were hit with another hack earlier this month that saw hackers banning players for 67 days, in reference of course to the classic 6-7 meme, which just gets funnier every time a 9-year-old says it. I personally can't get enough of it. Thankfully, the game is now back up, and Ubisoft has said they'll be distributing compensation, including a 4x Battle Pass XP bonus thing, 10 Battle Pass levels, and all the missed daily rewards. Note that the account rollbacks are still in progress, so if you have like a billion credits, just know you're not going to have them very soon. This wasn't the only Ubisoft news this past week though, since it looks like they're kicking off the year with a round of cutbacks and closures. First up, Ubisoft Massive and Ubisoft Stockholm have proposed a round of layoffs. This Week in Video Games has received a statement directly from Ubisoft saying, quote, Massive Entertainment and Ubisoft Stockholm are proposing organizational changes to align their structure with a confirmed long-term roadmap and create sustainable conditions for the work ahead. This may affect approximately 55 roles across Malmo and Stockholm, end quote. Interesting to know that this comes after a voluntary career transition program was put in place at Massive Entertainment back in October of last year, which clearly signaled that layoffs were on the horizon. But the layoffs continued, as GamesIndustry.biz would soon report that Ubisoft Abu Dhabi, the studio behind mobile title Growtopia, would also suffer layoffs. Ubisoft's statement reads, quote, In November, Ubisoft made the difficult decision to restructure its Abu Dhabi mobile studio, discontinuing some projects in order to focus on Growtopia. As a result, this change impacted 29 team members. We remain deeply grateful for their contributions and are providing support to them throughout the transition, end quote. But wait, there's more. Ubisoft are also in the headlines this week for suddenly shutting down one of their Canadian studios, Ubisoft Halifax, the studio behind free-to-play mobile titles like Assassin's Creed Rebellion and Rainbow Six Siege Mobile. Ubisoft says the studio will be closing as part of a greater cost reduction effort. Quote, over the past 24 months, Ubisoft has undertaken company-wide actions to streamline operations, improve efficiencies, and reduce costs. As part of this, Ubisoft has made the difficult decision to close its Halifax studio. 71 positions will be affected. We are committed to supporting all impacted team members during this transition with resources, including comprehensive severance packages and additional career assistance, end quote. What's really suspect though is that the axe fell soon after Halifax workers had formed the first Ubisoft union in North America under the Game and Media Workers Guild of Canada, with the now somewhat ironic intent of stopping things like this from ever happening. In a statement sent to game developer, CWA Canada says the timing of the decision, quote, raises many questions for which we do not yet have answers, end quote, and that they will, quote, pursue every legal recourse to ensure that the rights of these workers are respected and not infringed in any way, end quote. CWA Canada hasn't directly accused Ubisoft of union busting, but said it will now be demanding information from the publisher to understand why it suddenly made the decision to shut down the studio. On that note, there's been some major developments regarding the ongoing case against Rockstar, who laid off over 30 staff last year, who Rockstar claim were leaking confidential information, and it was just a coincidence that all these people were union members in a union Discord at a time when the union was just about to cross a threshold where Rockstar would be legally forced to recognize them. This all happened back in October of last year, and since then impacted employees have been without pay. So one of the first motions of the Independent Workers Union of Great Britain was to return the workers to Rockstar's payroll and restore work visas while waiting for a full trial. Speaking to IGN, the union said, quote, no matter the outcome of this interim hearing, we remain confident in the strength of the case we have brought against Rockstar Games, end quote. Well, as reported by Jason Schreier of Bloomberg, the IWGB was recently denied those requests at a preliminary employment tribunal hearing. Bloomberg said that the judge Francis Eccles determined the workers, quote, had not demonstrated a pretty good chance of success at persuading the court that the dismissals were for union membership or organizing. In all the circumstances, the tribunal was unable to conclude that it appears likely that the tribunal will find that the principal reason for the claimant's dismissal was their membership of the IWGB, end quote. Bloomberg did note that the ruling stated, quote, the bar for achieving a favorable interim ruling was higher than it will be in the final hearing, end quote, and that the judge acknowledged that some of the affected workers, quote, posted very little on the Discord server, end quote, with one fired worker having just one line put up against them, as noted by the People Make Games report. However, Judge Eccles also acknowledged that the 350-member Discord channel also included individuals who were no longer Rockstar employees. Despite this disappointing outcome, the IWGB remains unshaken. In a new statement made to Bloomberg, IWGB President Alex Marshall says, quote, we've come out of last week's hearing more confident than ever that a full and substantive tribunal will find Rockstar's calculated attempts to crush a union to not only be unjust, but unlawful, end quote. Of course, Rockstar continues to insist that the firings were a result of leaked information. One spokesperson issued a statement to IGN saying that the developer has, quote, consistently made clear that we took necessary action against a group of individuals across the UK and Canada who discussed highly confidential information. Even the smallest leak of any information relating to our products and practices can cause major commercial and creative damage. This was never about union membership, end quote. So what exactly is that leaked information, you may ask? Surely, if something got out, we'd have heard about it by now. Well, in an investigation on this preliminary hearing from People Make Games, we finally got some of those details. Quote, the respondent, Rockstar, was also gravely concerned to discover that some of the claimants had been sharing highly confidential and commercially sensitive information relating to the content and features of an unannounced online service. They discussed the specific number of online players planned for this service, a material feature of the new title, which has not yet been revealed by Rockstar, end quote. So, what is that number? What is this leaked info that People Make Games says Rockstar lawyers framed as so, quote, top secret, end quote, that he dared not even speak it aloud, insisting that the judge read it in private? Well, apparently, this unannounced online service is a multiplayer service that will support, and I hope you are sitting down for this news, 32 player lobbies. Oh my God, can you believe it? I am literally shaking and crying right now. That is how impactful this incredibly confidential news is. In case it is at all unclear, I am being sarcastic. Absolutely no one cares about news as vague and as inconsequential as this. And to think that 34 people lost their livelihoods over this shit is fucking disgraceful. In fact, the news is so inconsequential that Rockstar did not apply for reporting restrictions on it, which means it's now out in the public. And I don't see the sky falling down. I don't see Take-Two stock price tumbling. I don't see Jeff Keighley yanking the award for most anticipated game. And this weak shit is Rockstar's excuse for firing 34 people. Embarrassing. Highly recommend watching People Make Games video on this topic, as it offers a comprehensive timeline of the events leading up to the preliminary hearing, a summary of the arguments made by both parties, and the Discord messages Rockstar submitted as evidence. People Make Games has since spoken to some of the fired employees, saying they're pleased to have had all of this aired in public, likely because it demonstrates how ludicrous Rockstar's claims are, but the impacts of this hearing were also keenly felt, as one member said that many would go on to search for new jobs immediately if that interim pay was not granted. Apparently, Rockstar also immediately informed the Home Office about the fired employees on work visas, with return to home orders being issued. So not only did these people lose their livelihoods, some of them would have had to have left the country, uprooting their entire lives and that of their families over this weak shit. This matter will continue to move through the courts over the coming months. I very much hope that these workers get their jobs back and that Rockstar's management are held accountable by some means, but I don't know, it feels like too much to hope for. Kicking now to the first lightning round of the year, and production on the live-action God of War series is underway, and Amazon recently revealed their casting for the sad dad himself. Ryan Hurst has officially been cast as Kratos, known for his roles in Sons of Anarchy, Remember the Titans, and The Walking Dead. More notably though, he was actually the voice actor for Thor in God of War Ragnarok, a role that he totally crushed. So he's got the talent, he's got the build, he's got the beard, he's familiar with the source material. Honestly, not a bad casting choice at all. Despite how funny it'd be, it's very unlikely we'll see Christopher Judge as Thor, but there are rumors that Olaf Dari Olafsson is in talks to take up that role alongside Max Parker as Boulder, which would be awesome if true. I mean, look at them, they're just like, the resemblance is uncanny. A perhaps sobering observation from Sakana's Matt Piscatella via Blue Sky was that the most played games on Xbox and PlayStation for 2025 were literally identical to that of 2024. Fortnite, Call of Duty, GTA 5, Roblox, and Minecraft were the top 5 most played games in the US across both Xbox and PlayStation for the last 2 years. But hey, you never know. Maybe Highguard's about to change that. Splitgate 2 recently launched for the second time after it went back into beta mid last year for sweeping overhauls following a poorly received 1.0 release. In December, it was relaunched as Splitgate Arena Reloaded, a mobile-ass name if ever I've heard one. And it seems like the second go-around isn't faring much better than the first. It launched to a peak of just 2,297 players before steadily declining day by day. At the time of writing, it's now struggling to crack even 1,000 daily players. The developer 1047 Games have tried to put on a brave face though, taking to Twitter with a post that reads, quote, "Steam charts don't measure fun. They show one number on one platform at one given moment. They don't show the full picture or what it's like to actually play, and they definitely don't capture the community that's actively helping shape what Arena Reloaded is becoming, including upcoming content like Arena Royale. Over the past 6 months, we rebuilt Splitgate from the ground up because we believe in the game, our team, and our community. The 1047 team remains committed to delivering the best version of Splitgate possible," end quote. And yeah, for what it's worth, the game has seen a more positive reception, with recent reviews at 72% mostly positive on Steam, but with player numbers declining as rapidly as they are, the long-term prospects for this game aren't looking great. Speaking of which, New World. Last year it was announced that the MMORPG would be winding down into maintenance mode as the development team was closed down by Amazon, and with so many players jumping ship, I think we all wondered how much longer it would be before the game shut down altogether. Well, we just got our answer. It was announced the other day that New World will be delisted from storefronts on the 15th of this month, and that the game would be officially taken offline across all platforms on January 31st next year. A real shame, to be honest. This was the first high production MMORPG we've had in the West for a long ass time, resulting in a launch that absolutely popped off. Over the years though, that popularity did drop dramatically for very legitimate reasons like its exploits and its lack of endgame content at launch, but it eventually did find its footing and it had a dedicated community, and by most accounts it was making somewhat of a comeback until Amazon suddenly and unceremoniously abandoned ship, adding it to the ever-growing list of recent MMO closures. But hey, Austin claims that Guild Wars 3 is definitely actually happening now according to some job posting, so maybe there's hope yet for a new major MMO release in the next decade? Game Awards are behind us now, but award season isn't over just yet. The 29th annual DICE nominees have been released, and in the running for Game of the Year is Claire Obscure, Expedition 33, Blueprints, Arc Raiders, Dispatch, and Ghosts of Yotei. Both Expedition 33 and Ghosts of Yotei received 8 total nominations. Arc Raiders and Dispatch received 6, Blueprints received 5, and Death Stranding got 4, not too shabby at all. Alongside those nominations, it was also revealed that Evan Well, former president of Naughty Dog, would be inducted into the Academy of Interactive Arts and Sciences Hall of Fame. Quote, "Throughout his tenure at Naughty Dog, Evan has exemplified what it means to lead with vision, integrity, and a deep respect for the craft," end quote. Meanwhile, we also had the Steam Award winners, which were entirely user voted. Hollow Knight Silksong took home Game of the Year despite some steep competition against other finalists such as Dispatch, Arc Raiders, Expedition 33, and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Other notable winners include Hades 2 for Best Game on Steam Deck, Peak for the Better with Friends Award, Silent Hill F for Outstanding Visual Style, Arc Raiders for Most Innovative Gameplay, Expedition 33 for Best Soundtrack, Dispatch for the Story Rich Award, and are we there yet for the Sit Back and Relax Award? Honestly, I'm not sure about that one. From the gameplay I've seen, that shit looks stressful as hell. The developer of ghost hunting co-op game Phasmophobia has launched their very own publisher. It's called Kinetic Publishing, and they've stated they refuse to publish blockchain or Web3 games, as well as games being made with generative AI. Other than that, they're accepting games of all genres and are specifically looking for console and PC projects that are 12 to 18 months from completion, for which they're offering funding and advisory support while letting developers keep full creative control in an area where it's becoming increasingly difficult for developers to find publishers. I say good on them. Good luck. A little bit of sort of free stuff to shout out now after a few weeks away. On the Epic Games Store, they're handing out copies of both Styx games, Master of Shadows and Shards of Darkness. If you've never played these before, they're pretty good fantasy stealth games starring a goblin people seem to hate, and there's a sequel coming out in February. Worthy shout out for Nintendo Switch Online subscribers with the Switch 2. Fire Emblem Path of Radiance came out for the GameCube Classics library during the break. This one is very well regarded, so much so that physical copies used to go on eBay for like hundreds of dollars. Not anymore, I guess. For PlayStation Plus subscribers, January will bring you Need for Speed Unbound, Core Keeper, and Epic Mickey Rebrushed for you to keep, while on Xbox Game Pass, they added a few titles worth catching up on if you have a subscription: Little Nightmares Enhanced Edition, Star Wars Outlaws, and Resident Evil Village. Oh, and over on Prime Gaming, they're offering a slowdown quite a bit actually, but it's still worth logging in to redeem an Epic code for Civilization 6. It's a new year, so why not start it by checking out our website this week in videogames.com. We're very proud of it as it's 100% ad-free and provides daily news, opinion, features, and deep dives into all of the biggest and smallest stories in the world of video games. Your support of independent games media means we get to keep being independent, being able to say whatever we like without fear that Google's algorithm or some sponsor will put our lights out. Plus, I think you'll really like the sort of coverage we're doing over there. It's good, clean, thorough coverage, free of clickbait and nonsense, pulling in expert perspectives, covering stories that we don't have the time to cover on this show. If you love this industry and want to stay as informed as possible, you're going to get a huge amount out of This Week in Videogames.com. So sign up for free or become a paid supporter to get even more benefits, including an ad-free version of this very new show. That's This Week in Videogames.com. And now, back to the rest of the show. All right, so what got announced or delayed over the last few weeks? Well, let's start with Xbox. Believe it or not, they're still around. They just announced a Developer Direct Showcase for January 22nd. This one will cover 2 titles from Playground Games in the UK, Fable and Forza Horizon 6, and a look at a third-party game, Beast of Reincarnation from Pokemon developer Game Freak. The lads over at VGC have corroborated rumors that there will be an undisclosed 4th game shown, which is meant to be a smaller scale game, but one from a first-party Xbox developer. Pentiment 2? Unlikely, sadly. Speaking of Obsidian, they turned up in the New Game Plus showcase to announce that Avowed was making the leap to PS5 1 year after its Xbox launch on the 17th of February 2026, complete with a New Game Plus mode, additional classes, weapons, and other features that has largely made its Xbox players feel like they were getting the early access version of the game. Hate to tell you guys, but that's just video games, unfortunately. One man who's definitely known for delivering on everything he promises is original Fable creator Peter Molyneux, who's returning to the god game genre he also pioneered for what may be his last game, if recent interviews are any indication. And since Peter Molyneux says it, you know it must be true. It's called Masters of Albion, where you build and manage a township and its citizens, and it's got a release date for 22nd of April this year. A brief detour now out of the world of video games to talk about something that's become very close to my heart over the last 12 months. Magic the Gathering. They've announced their latest set, Lorwyn Eclipsed, which releases on January 20th in Magic the Gathering Arena and physically on January 23rd. This one is cool because it brings in a kind of dual aspect playing thing, which adds double face cards and a bit of complexity to the game, as well as bringing in new mechanics like Blight to weaken your opponents. I think it's cool. I'm sure at least some of you do too. I love me some Magic, though I do end up playing Arena more than the physical game because aligning schedules as adults is the real hard mode. As a friend of mine says, we've got all the magic, none of the gathering. Only one delay worth mentioning in this block, and it's that IO Interactive's 007 First Light has been pushed back to May 27th, a couple of months past its original 26th of March release date. No specific reason given other than it just needs more time. Not at all unusual for big releases like this. Still, can't believe Lenny Kravitz is the bad guy. That really feels like a fever dream moment looking back into 2025, but it really did happen. So what came out over the holiday break? Well, one notable early access release was Star Rupture. This is the first-person open-world base building and automation game from the Green Hell developers, and it's gotten off to a very good start with a very positive sentiment on Steam with over 2,200 reviews at the time of writing. I think we called it a mashup of all the PC game genres in our last episode, and yeah, that basically seems like what it is. Here's Mia the King on Steam, who said, quote, Star Rupture is a game eerily similar to every other game I've played, it seems. First-person automation sending shipments to corporations like Satisfactory? Check. FPS survival game on alien planet trying to survive a penal sentence like Planet Crafter? Check. Lots of automated defenses and an ever-growing alien swarm threat like Factorio? Check. So if you liked any of those games, you'll like this one, end quote. Something far more challenging and boundary pushing is Pathologic 3, where difficult choices and hard human management decisions shape what has always been a very grim series. Few reviewers dared to take this one on, but Steam users have pushed it into very positive territory with just shy of 1,000 reviews at the time of writing. Here's Andrus, who has clocked over 20 hours at this point, saying, quote, I'm a long-time fan of the series and have played the previous Pathologic games. Instead of making a safe remake, the developers took a genuinely bold approach and changed the core mechanics on a fundamental level. In earlier Pathologic games, there was always this constant feeling that you would miss something, that you'd made the wrong choices, and that maybe you should replay the whole thing and do it properly. In Pathologic 3, this very feeling is turned into an actual game mechanic through time travel and the ability to correct past mistakes. It's a fresh and genuinely interesting idea. What matters is the overall atmosphere and narrative quality remain just as strong as ever, end quote. Closing out with a quick look at Cozy Caravan, which came out of early access and onto Switch and Apple Arcade. It's maintained its very positive rating on Steam. Here's Beanhead, who has 73 hours in this thing, saying, quote, this is Animal Crossing at its most cozy. While cooking and crafting were previously annoying tasks to me, Crazy Caravan makes it meditative, end quote. And that was it, a very, very quiet release period as the holidays typically are. So let's turn our attention to the future and ask, what's coming out this week? Well, we're going to squeeze in a little bit more here as a few release dates were set while we were away, but there's a really nice mix of stuff to go through. We'll kick things off with Quarantine Zone: The Last Check. This is the latest one from Devolver Digital, developed by an outfit in Armenia called Brigada Games. This is the one where you're stationed at a checkpoint during a zombie apocalypse, responsible for scanning people for infections, like those dudes at the start of The Last of Us Part 1, where they were like, hey man, you did this, and he was like, no, and he ran away, and then they killed him. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. The demo went a bit viral last year, get it? And the game itself released on Tuesday of this week, so it's already gotten a pretty good start with a mostly positive sentiment on Steam, over 1,500 reviews counted. PC only for this one. One we've been following for a little while now, mainly because one of our staff members, Maddie, is like obsessed with it, is Hytale. If you remember, this is the standalone Minecraft competitor that spawned out of a very popular custom Minecraft server. It's been in development for over 10 years, and Riot Games was funding this one until they dropped it last year. It was reacquired by its founders, and now it's finally been released into early access as of last Tuesday, and man, does it seem massive. It hit over 440,000 concurrent viewers on Twitch on launch day, and the developers say that pre-orders have already funded the next 2 years of development. This is available for PC and Mac through a custom launcher. One for the folks who say we don't give enough love to JRPGs, we see you. The Legend of Heroes Trails Beyond the Horizon arrived in the West on Thursday of this week for PC, PlayStation, and Switch platforms. This is the 13th game in the Legend of Heroes series and the third one in the current narrative arc, kind of a reverse Final Fantasy situation where it's confusingly not sequentially numbered, but playing the previous ones does matter. It first came out in Japan in late 2024, and it's one of those games where people knew it was good on account of its reputation and narrative and characters, but weren't sure if it would ever get an official translation. Will I play it? Definitely not, but I'm happy for all who celebrate. Question, are you going to nuke your island when Animal Crossing New Horizons Nintendo Switch 2 edition comes out on Thursday, January 15th? Too many memories, maybe? COVID memories, sure, but there's a lot of hours of labor in there. The upgrade features revamped visuals and mouse functionality, which is an excellent use of the tech, but the game is also getting a big free 3.0 update with a new hotel being the big draw card, along with Dream Islands that allow for true co-op play for up to 12 people, and the full return of Mr. Rossetti, the mole who used to chew you out for turning off your console before saving, and who can now reset portions of your island for you to start afresh easily. A couple of horror games to follow up that dose of wholesomeness. On Friday, January 16th, we're getting Broken Law Unfollow, which featured in Sony's last state of play. It's honestly a kind of fucked up looking psychological horror game from Japan that supposedly explores the mental effects of social media as its protagonist gets trapped in a nightmare world. Kind of sounds just like logging onto Twitter every day. The last couple of entries in the series seem to have done quite well, so maybe this is one to watch. PC, PS5, and Xbox Series consoles for this one. Another horror game from Australia comes out on Monday, January 19th, but this one is VR only for PC and Quest. It's called Ghost Camp, and as you'd expect, it involves using a Polaroid camera to find and capture spirits in spooky areas with a quote 70s/80s haunted horse girl aesthetic, end quote. Okay, moving right along. Focus Entertainment is breaking the seal with the year's first Metroidvania on Tuesday, January 20th. It's called Mio Memories in Orbit, and it revolves around playing a little android dude in a fantasy sci-fi world put together in a nice looking cel-shaded art style. This one is hitting all platforms as well as Xbox Game Pass. Riot Games is also bringing their long in development League of Legends fighting game 2XKO to consoles on January 20th, PS5 and Xbox Series consoles that is, after launching on PC late last year. Quite a few notable fighting game folks behind this one, and it's got a big focus on being exceptionally approachable. Ed, who is our resident fighting game guy, reckons it's definitely got some of the sauce, but like any free-to-play live service game these days, it's always going to be an uphill battle to steal mindshare away from the top dog, which is still Street Fighter, with the high-profile Marvel Tokon also on the way this year. Still, can't argue with that low barrier to entry. A couple of big ports landing on Thursday, January 22nd. Dynasty Warriors Origins is hitting Switch 2, and Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate is also hitting Switch 2, as well as Xbox Series consoles. And finally, Cult of the Lamb continues to be one of Australia's biggest video game success stories of the past few years, and it's getting a major paid endgame expansion next Thursday called Woolhaven. It revolves around a new location featuring ice and snow as its overarching survival theme, new dungeons, as well as animal ranching and breeding, out on all platforms for this one. If you're after a new video game featuring a lovable animal companion, however, you should probably put this on your radar. This is Big Hops, a very cute 3D platforming game that gets a little bit ambitious by asking, what if we had more Breath of the Wild in this genre? What this means is that even though your frog protagonist Hop has a bunch of movement skills like tongue, grappling hook, wall running, rail riding, and free climbing, there's also a significant emphasis on using a variety of tools to manipulate the environment, letting you get creative and forge your own unique solutions to platforming puzzles. It sounds great on paper, and Ed was actually playing this one during the holiday break and says it's been really well executed. A fantastic indie platformer and an excellent Steam game to boot. Big Hops is out now with a free Steam demo still available as well. If you like the look of this one, you can find a link to it over on our Steam curator page, which also has links to all of the other Put This on Your Radar stuff we've recently covered. I'll leave a link to all of that below the like button. In 2026, I predict AI will be one of those news stories that just keeps popping up no matter how much we want it to go away. So it feels only right that our first feel-good story of the year is about a moment when the AI loses. Hardest is a free-to-play scissors-paper rock-style card game that was released in July of last year. It was from a student developer who goes by the name Racuel, and it didn't make much of a splash, currently sitting at a mixed rating with just 38 reviews counted, despite being free-to-play. So it was a bit of a surprise when last week Racuel posted to the game's announcement feed with a headline that read, quote, "AI is bad, game will be deleted 30th of January, end quote." Intriguing. Racuel went on, quote, "I made this game during the summer in couple months and thought to use AI because in university there is so much brainwashing on students and all the tools are given for free, so I could generate unlimited images for free, and so, full stop. But I have realized the AI is not actually free and it has a major effect on the economy and environment. Some AI companies can use this game just existing as a reason to get more investment for more AI companies that benefit no one, but rather suck resources from the economy from hardworking people," end quote. Okay, incredibly based Racuel, couldn't agree more, but tell me, what led to this sudden epiphany when, for 6 months, the game was sitting on Steam and, it never bothered you before? Luckily, Racuel is more than happy to explain, quote, "I coded everything myself, so I can in the future make a new game with real assets if I like it, but the game existing in its current form is a disgrace to all game makers and players. Ethically, only logical reason is to delete the game from Steam. The girl I've been dating for a month made me realize this," end quote. Dude gets laid one time and immediately realizes that AI is bad. I think we finally found the solution to the AI bubble, ladies and gentlemen. The tech bros, they just got to get themselves a girlfriend and the world will be saved. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is our first show for 2026 done. Did you enjoy yourself? If you did, we'd love it if you could hit that like button so we can come back big and strong, letting the algorithm know that 5 years in, this week in video games can still bring the likes. If you're new here, then do be sure to subscribe and ding that notification bell since we have a huge amount of content coming soon, including that ROG Xbox Ally review, Austin's impressions of Ashes of Creation, plus some cheeky stuff I'm not allowed to mention just yet, but you're gonna like it, trust me. Also, don't forget to check out our website thisweekinvideogames.com for daily news coverage that is 100% ad-free. Always a huge amount going on over there. For now, that's the show done. Thanks again, have a fantastic week, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. Very excited to be shouting out the sponsor of this video, our longest running and most supportive partner, Squarespace. Last year I got word that Squarespace was signing for a 7th consecutive year, helping the Skill Up team do what we do. Squarespace was actually the very first long-term sponsor I secured, and they've been with me ever since. Their support gave me the confidence to go full-time on YouTube, so it's very little exaggeration to say that I wouldn't be here without them, or at the very least, their support gave me a huge shove towards where I am today. Squarespace are helping me live my dream career, and to be honest, that's kind of what they do because their website creation tools make it super easy for anyone to spin up a new business, scale up existing businesses, develop a portfolio of work, or just build community. The days of having to hire an expensive team of web developers to make your website are over. With Squarespace, you can build a professional looking website in just minutes. Just start by selecting one of their templates, customize it using their intuitive tools, and then begin uploading your content, be it published articles, the inventory of stuff you're selling, your art portfolio, whatever. Squarespace websites all support e-commerce, making it easy to begin doing business, either by selling products or by organizing appointments if you're providing a service. They also support multiple payment solutions as well as detailed analytics so you can see how customers are finding you and what they're doing when they spend time on your site. They're also ready for this next AI-enabled era, with AI-powered tools that make website design and copywriting even easier, and their SEO tools have been refreshed to ensure that your site appears in AI-powered searches and chatbot responses. There's so much more that Squarespace offers, so if you'd like to check it out for yourself, you can visit squarespace.com to try it for free, and if you want to get serious, visit squarespace.com/skillup to get 10% off your purchase of a website or a domain name. A big thanks to Squarespace for their 7 years of support, and a big thanks to you for watching this video.